All right. Okay, well, welcome. I think we got all those logistics sorted out now. Technical, no difficulties. I was going to say technical difficulties, but no, technical smoothness. Yeah, ready for these two fine gentlemen. They're about to be educated and entertained. If you've never met Alex Whalen or Denis Manzer, this is now the moment, the opportunity to learn from them and discover what interesting characters they are and their escapades into the wilds, learning about plant foods, medicines that this ecosystem provides us. So I can't believe this is the only mic. I was like, really? You only want an hour? Like, these guys are so knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure you've got.
No, it's true. It's true.
Yeah, I'm sure you've got so. When was it? Just a couple of weeks ago, you did a whole, how many, was it
about
two?
1 hour on a single
Just
herb.
a single herb rhodiola.
That was kind of fun.
Yeah, so what we'll do, I'll send that link out for anybody that didn't get an opportunity to see it, because it's an entire deep dive. It's called Rhodiola. Yeah.
Yeah, so like Malcolm was saying, we really had to condense this presentation today, but it's good practice. So we're going to go over some very valuable herbs that this local landscape has to offer.
Yeah, thanks for bearing with us here, everyone. But, this is one of the most important subjects that's come up in the last 2 years for us. It is really, when we're looking at the world, we had to start asking ourselves some real questions, like, what do we have close to home? As a herbalist here at Light Cellar, we're working with so many things like goji berries that come from so far. I think we're gonna try to get some more carrots for you out here. Yeah, you can totally grow goji berries in Calgary though, and they're delicious and super yummy. So yeah, today that's what we're exploring with you, is what we found right here in Alberta to be the best.
And before we dive into that, our company is about a year old, Denis. And our main mission is to bridge the gap between humans and nature. That's our main mission. Sure, we do workshops, we do plant walks, we make products, but our focus is to get people outside, to reconnect people with nature.
And we've actually been foraging together, we've been actually foragers in Alberta for almost 8 or 9 years now, hey? Almost a decade that Alex and I have been hunting for mushrooms, especially.
I remember the first time Denis, he invited me on a foraging trip. He said, Alex, do you want to go on a foraging trip 3 days in the middle of nowhere? I said, you're darn right I do. Let's do this. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know who this guy was. My wife has had some doubts, but no, I came back in one piece, and yeah, it's been awesome, Denis. So.
Alice, do you want me to mention?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a very good question. Our company is called Boreal Bound. And so the reason it's called Boreal Bound, I think bound has 10 different definitions. What do you think when you hear bound?
Alberta bound.
Going somewhere. It's like a destination. And that's sort of like what we had in mind.
Because we've been going up north is where we have to go to hunt these mushrooms a lot, like the chaga. Oh, yeah, this is the Alberta reishi mushroom. And this is honestly, it all kind of started looking for this mushroom for me anyway. And for us, we were hunting for the chaga, which you got to go to the birch trees.
And we're going to talk about this one. This is one of the treasures, and there's many treasures. So like I said, we had to condense it, narrow it down. And we actually came up with 4 different things here.
Oh, that is a good question. I think we can figure it out. Oh, right. I think Finn might know. Oh, that's better.
Excellent. So it's kind of a play on words.
Boreal bound botanicals, but do people, for me, I've been working with reishi mushroom for about 4 or 5 years before I realized we have it right here in Alberta. We have reishi mushroom here in the forests, and people don't even know, for one thing. But yeah, it's kind of in our job, hunting these mushrooms, foraging, and bringing them back to the city. They say when you drink the chaga, part of the feeling you get and part of the healing effect when you drink, you're in the forest. It's kind of the.
So today we're going to talk about 4 different things here. The first one being up here is the roots of Rhodiola, followed by the golden goo.
The golden goo.
Horns of gold, and the golden king. So play on words, play on gold. I'm sort of dressed up like a leprechaun today.
This is just
Denise the
more,
pirate.
examples of really powerful herbs we have right here. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the other promising Alberta herbs too at the end.
And there's many more, like Denise said. It was really hard to narrow it down to 4, but you're going to see why these are so powerful.
So our very first herb here is it is a good example of the potential we have here in Alberta for growing not only incredibly valuable herbs for ourselves, but incredibly valuable herbs on the herbal marketplace too. So our first subject is the rhodiola. So we're actually cultivating rhodiola here in Alberta, and it grows very well here in the harsh climate. So we can pass some around, Alex.
Yeah, so we have a lot of samples here today. I'm just going to pass this around. If you don't feel comfortable taking it, just keep passing it along. But this is our Alberta Rhodiola tincture. There is alcohol in it. We do have to mention that. And there is honey in it. So if you have an aversion to alcohol or honey, don't take it.
But another, a little bit. It's kind of like an elderberry.
So this is actually the root of a succulent plant. So it's actually a succulent plant that thrives in very harsh conditions. Minus 20, minus 30.
There's a little bit of, maybe on the next page, there's a little photo of what it looks like. That's like a very old, like rhodiola is a very old herb. We've been using it since, well, the Greeks would talk about it. Yeah, it's actually like a little stone crop, like a hen and chicks.
A lot of history too. Apparently the Vikings would take it to increase energy and decrease stress before battle.
Some people say the Vikings conquered the world thanks to rhodiola because it does keep you alert. Its major thing is that it's a memory tonic and a nervous system tonic. And the other really important word, as we go back one slide here, this very first word on top here, adaptogen, is the word we want to use. Hey everybody, we'll try to squeeze you in here. There's chairs on the other side over there. Yeah. Someone, I think Malcolm's around that can help you get some chairs. Okay, where were we? Oh yes, the word adaptogen. So that's the critical. Oh, that's the critical thing about rhodiola. And the definition of an adaptogen is a herb that generates adaptation to stress in the body. And really the theme in Alberta is that if this plant, well, the more stressful the circumstances that the rhodiola grows in, the more medicinal it becomes. So like rhodiola from Alberta is some of the strongest in the world because it is actually really harsh. It's a very harsh climate here. Believe it or not, it grows better in the Calgary area than it does in the Edmonton area too. It's almost like a desert plant. So it loves, and so We do have a native rhodiola here. And it grows above the tree line in the Rockies. So you got your tree line, you got your rocks above that, where you would think nothing could grow. That is where the rhodiola grows. It's a high altitude, high alpine plant. So the more stressful the circumstances, the greater the medicine.
And that's sort of the cool thing, Aiden. It's such an interesting plant. It thrives in -40. And so when you think internally, when humans take that, do you think that's going to affect our ability to, regulate external stress, to combat external fatigue? Absolutely does. And that's just one of the benefits. As you can see, there's a list of benefits here. I really want to touch on the longevity part of it, because it's one of the most, I'd say it's probably the best adaptogen that we have in Canada to prevent age-related disease. I mean, we can't really avoid father time, but we can add things to our regime to help. So there was a study, I think it was done on fruit flies, and the fruit flies that were given rhodiola lived 20% longer. That's it. All they were given was rhodiola every day, a very small amount, and they lived 20% longer.
When we look at the plant itself, it's a perennial. So rhodiola actually grows for many years. And each year it gets older, it actually gets more powerful in medicine as well.
Is it just the roots there?
Well, the whole plant can be used. The roots are really what we want when we're looking for this adaptogenic effect.
And it's actually, correct me if I'm wrong, Denis, but the alcohol extraction from the roots is the most potent medicine. It's the most potent way you could take rhodiola as medicine.
A lot of people have reported, because rhodiola was quite popular for a while here in Alberta, right? There was that company called Rhodiola, and people were taking rhodiola capsules. They weren't really noticing anything. That's what a lot of people told me. And I think the whole idea is you should taste the herb. You should taste the flavor of the herb. It's going to be way better than a capsule. And with the alcohol extraction too, you do get the benefits that it's potentiated, stronger.
And in a clinical study, it was shown that alcohol extraction of rhodiola can regulate the expression of over 1,000 genes in our body, which is huge. So that's going to allow us to age more gracefully and respond better to external stressors. Put your hand up if you're experiencing any external stressors these days. Don't be shy. If I had 3 hands. So what we noticed, we get a lot of feedback with people saying it's very stimulating, but also very relaxing.
Yeah, an interesting conundrum. It can keep you up at night if you have it too late before bed, especially if people are sensitive to caffeine. They can have that kind of thing going on, Although sometimes that's a useful thing. If I was driving all night, I'd want to have some rhodiola.
Does rhodiola contain?
Rhodiola does not contain caffeine. It is not a stimulant. It seems like its major benefits for adrenals and thus energizing all has to do with the stress relief.
And there's so much stuff to me that we don't even know about rhodiola. There's this one study that shows its effects on radiation. And if you want to take notes of this is one of the coolest things I've ever read.
This is also one of the major, coolest, frontiers of herbalism, is studying the herbs called radioprotective herbs. These are herbs that can protect you from radiation, but this is really neat as far as it goes with all the frequencies we're surrounded by.
What's that about? So in this one study that I'm referencing, there was a group of mice and they were exposed to a really severe form of radiation. Actually, there's 2 groups. The first group weren't given rhodiola, and they all died, unfortunately. The second group were given rhodiola 30 minutes before exposure to the radiation, and 90% of them survived. And not only did the 90% survive, they were actually totally fine afterwards. So there's something about rhodiola that we don't know if it activates our detoxification channels or if it allows us to respond to this external radiation. So if we could translate that to us as human beings, the radiation that we get from our cell phones, from cell towers, 5G, whatever, I mean, we can't avoid it, right? You could try. I mean, I like to go to the forest and forage for that reason, but then you always have to come back, and rhodiola is one of the best things to take for radiation.
This is another very fantastic book about the adaptogens, and there's a whole chapter here on the radioprotective herbs. So the science, we still don't understand exactly how it works, but it sounds like it has something to do with the minerals. These herbs are actually incredibly rich in minerals. And when we drink the rhodiola, these minerals are circulating in our bloodstream. They literally shield us. All these things. It's amazing. Yeah, highly recommended. If you want, there's 2 adaptogens books here. If you're a nerd, I've got both. This one is very well written and concise, so you get a good idea. This one has about 50 different research studies on rhodiola. Just rhodiola. This is the super science-driven book. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, that's what we do.
Out of curiosity, how tall is the plant grow?
Well, rhodiola, it is a little succulent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, here's a great quote actually about adaptogens. There's this funny little guy here.
Is that you?
It's that's actually Carolus Linnaeus. And Linnaeus, if you know about him, he's the one that started the botanical classification of herbs. He's the one that named Rhodiola rosea, which is the rose root. But yes, there's a great quote here from David Hoffman, another fantastic herbalist. But an herb, so rhodiola is a great adaptogen, and it is an herb that increases resistance and resilience to stress, enabling the body to avoid collapse because it can adapt around the problem. There's a few interesting theories on how these herbs work, but most adaptogens, and rhodiola included, the idea is that they're actually nutritive in a way to the body, like it's nourishing us, and we use those resources to build hormones with. So adaptogens, another way to say it is, it can regenerate the whole endocrine system, all the glands, and that has to do with stress too, right? It's
And
really
just a
neat.
show of hands here, has anyone taken rhodiola? Is anyone familiar with rhodiola?
Woo!
And there's so many benefits. Do you want to quickly share, like, what do you?
Gets through the brain fog in 50 minutes.
Brain
Wow.
fog, absolutely. It's one of the best things to take after a long day of presenting or at a market or staring at a computer all day.
Would this help for someone like me who's vaccine injured?
Well, it's an interesting, perhaps, yes, especially for the memory and stuff.
Yeah.
But speaking of which, we kind of have to keep moving because we have so many herbs to talk about.
What are 3 things you learned about rhodiola? Yeah, shout them out.
But you have to try
Adaptogen,
it.
longevity, that's my favorite. Thrives in Alberta. Howdy. Physical endurance.
And over here,
I just wanted to say if Boreal Bound ever does a trip to look for them, you have to call it the Rhodiola Romeo. Yeah.
well, it's very interesting. There's something called the Alberta Rhodiola Growers Association, and they're actually looking for people to grow rhodiola. So it does really well in Calgary. So in the spring, if you want some rhodiola in your garden, they might be sending me a whack of plants.
Yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause
Rhodiola, I recommend taking it, trying it. If I have it past 5 p.m., it does keep me up.
Yeah.
So I take it in the morning. And yeah, it's one of my favorite herbs to take.
And the Vikings, literally, it was worth its weight in gold to the Vikings. So we should think about that too. And they'd give it for us.
So the roots of gold. My
Yeah.
friend Denis, what's the next golden thing in our box here?
All right, the golden goo. This
We-
is a
We get very excited when we talk about
Yeah.
this. So we're gonna have to sing you a song first.
So this is another great example of a herb that's everywhere in Calgary. Who knows poplar?
We're gonna pass it through.
Populus balsamifera. This is also called the balm of Gilead, is one of the names for this tree. Should we sing our song for you?
Yes.
Okay. Every time we go and pick, when we go picking the balm, we
sing this for hours.
yeah, we do sing to the trees when we. Okay. There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. Yeah, people do not realize that these buds, so what you want from the poplar are the buds in the spring before they open up. And if you squeeze them, you'll notice it's very gooey and
Very sticky.
resinous.
That's why I'm very sticky.
And that's why it's called Populus balsamifera, because it's full of balsam, which is this resin.
And you know what's fascinating to me? The
Ooh,
balm
I
of
love-
Gilead is actually referenced in the Bible multiple times. And I was doing a little research, and Gilead is actually a place east of the Jordan River in Africa. And this place they refer to as Gilead was abundant with medicine, with frankincense, with myrrh, and perhaps with poplar buds.
But literally, so these buds are one of the most expensive herbs on the planet Earth right now. Per weight, these buds, they're worth $35 a pound on the wholesale market. So it's actually, people pay money for this stuff. People pay money for poplar buds. Yarrow Willard himself, Harmonic Arts. Every year he's like, Denny, because Calgary is actually special that we have so much poplar here, actually. On Vancouver Island, Yarrow Willard's like, Denny, you give me a call. I need poplar bud. Like, I'll pay you $35 a pound for it. And well, it does take a while to pick this stuff.
And actually, we're approaching the season. 'Tis the season to go harvest poplar buds. January,
Exactly.
February, March, it's rich, it's full of goo, and this is the time of year you want to go out, and I invite you all to go out and try it. So it is
Yeah.
sticky, like we're saying, and what we do is we pick them all, and then we put them in olive oil right away for a nice olive oil infusion. And then you can either let that sit for a while, or you can speed up the process by using a double boiler.
Why is it worth so much?
Add these vibes.
Does it have to be cottonwood or any pulp?
So the cottonwoods, I think, are better.
Yeah.
I like the ones down by the river a lot better than but you could use both. It doesn't really matter. I figure I should send this around for people just to sniff, eh? Oh my. I guess you could smell my fingers. But give that a sniff and you'll see.
So there's
What's
something
going on
called
there?
salicin in the resin, which converts to salicylic acid in your body, which is otherwise known as aspirin.
So we have to be careful with certain people like Bev here that are allergic to aspirin and compounds.
What is aspirin? What is salicylic acid? It's anti-inflammatory. It's anti-pain.
Yeah,
So
that's the reason this balm is worth so much on the market. It's one of the best painkillers ever, and it works transdermally, topically, wherever you put it. So sore muscles, sore joints, cuts and wounds.
Too. This is our balm-regulated salve. Feel free to use it. It accelerates wound
Whoops.
healing by about 200%.
There you go.
It does have some growth factors in it also. It's very good for eczema, for fungal skin issues,
Yeah.
sore muscles and joints. But it can also be used internally, which I think that always gets discredited. Okay.
I like to make tea with this. Here's a little,
So internally, it acts as an expectorant. So when we take it as a tea, or we made a nice throat spray, it literally breaks down all the mucus in our throat and our lungs, which is so powerful. So you do have to be cautious because of the salicin that you're not allergic to it. I mean,
yeah, be cautious. We've had we had one friend, we love one of our friends, so funny, we were like eating parts of the pine tree one summer. Along comes this like Bonesian walking down the sidewalk, like, oh, what are you guys doing? We're eating this pine pollen off the trees. We're gonna mention that. But she's like, oh, let me see what it tastes like. Ugh. Her throat started closing up. Ugh. She had an anaphylactic reaction. So always use caution. You'll know you're allergic to this stuff if you put it on your skin and you get a.
Yeah, but we actually use it for wind protection too.
Yeah.
So when we're out foraging, we'll rub it on our exposed skin.
100%.
If it's like -30, it repels that damaging cold. Yeah.
So does the trembling aspen, which also has that like aspirin, like you can use the powder on the stick, can you use it for balm-regulated as well?
So this is a great question about aspen. So aspen trees are also populous species. The thing about aspen is that the buds are so tiny in comparison.
Okay.
So it takes forever to pick them.
Right.
Rubbing alcohol and getting this off your fingers.
Another thing it's good for, Denis, is sunburns. For after you get a sunburn,
It won't necessarily
just load it
it's
on
not
and
gonna-
it takes away the pain.
It's not going to protect you from getting a sunburn. It's not like sunscreen, but it will heal the burn. But yeah, this is what we do when we're out there in the cold. Here it's getting cold soon, but because it has, well, it's beeswax and olive oil, right? Mixed with this resin from the poplar. So basically it makes a windproof shield on your face.
And we'll give you a foraging tip. Do you want to know a foraging tip?
Yes.
So when you're out looking for this stuff, we always follow the beaver. Follow the beaver activity.
Yeah, 100%.
Because the beavers love the poplar tree. And they'll chew it up,
100%.
it'll fall down, and then it makes foraging so easy. Also sustainable too, right? We're not cutting down trees. We're not going on Denis' shoulders.
The beavers love eating them. Rabbits love eating them. The other amazing way to pick a whole lot of bud at once is to find a windfall. So after a big windstorm, go and walk amongst the poplars and you'll see branches have fallen. Basically, the season to pick the buds is like November till April in Calgary.
Yeah, it's the season now, like I was saying. We invite you all. Literally, this morning on my dog walk, I think I came across like 20 poplar trees just yelling at me to forage and pick them, but I didn't have time. Yeah.
So yeah, look for windfall, look for beavers, and talk to your local arborists. Talk to your local arborists because they're taking down poplars left and right because they're like a weed. They're called the weed of Calgary.
Yeah, they're everywhere. You're gonna notice them now.
And
Just all over.
the way that poplar grows so fast is an indication of how good it is. for healing the skin. It is called a skin cell proliferant. So if you have a cut, if you have a burn, yeah, it's gonna rapidly heal the wound. And that's what it does out there. I don't know if you've ever seen a poplar get chopped and it grows like that, right? It's nuts.
All right, Denise, so we did the roots of gold. We
That's
touched on the golden
The
goo.
golden goo. If someone comes up with a better name for that, for us,
I'll work on it. One other,
Yeah.
one other question.
One last question.
Do you put beeswax in it as well?
absolutely 100%. It's beeswax and olive oil.
Yeah.
Uh,
Half and half?
the ratio is 1/3 wax. So if you have a liter of infused olive oil, you would use 500 mils of beeswax. If you're interested in making the balm of Gilead, we'll send out a recipe for you guys too.
Yeah.
You've got your emails. We'll send you a recipe
Okay.
because it would take two hours to
I'm just
talk about
wondering,
making
like, when
salads.
you make it as a tea because it's so sticky. Like,
Oh,
is it
yeah.
okay to be drinking the sticky stuff?
So yes, it is. It's just like frankincense in
It's
a lot
very
of ways. Drinking
Powerful.
it, it's an expectorant. It's good for sore throats. It opens the lungs, opens the voice. I'm chewing on one right now, but it will wreck whatever instruments you use it.
Yeah, it can be frustrating.
So
So
often, if I'm in a pinch, like here, I'll take a bunch of the buds. I'll put them in a compostable cup, pour the hot water and honey over it, and just drink it like that.
yeah, rubbing alcohol works well to remove
Yeah,
it.
rubbing alcohol will remove it.
How many buds do you put in a cup of tea?
I'd say like 7 or 8 or 9.
All right. The next golden item is
Okay.
the horns of gold.
You're ready for this?
This is Alberta elk antler. And this was shed naturally. I think that he found this in the Kananaskis region.
Yeah, that was up hunting. I was hunting mushrooms.
What a score!
Yeah, and they do shed them every year. And this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe he was 5 years old.
This is
But
a miracle, yeah.
What is going on in the elk antler that's so medicinal, that's so valuable? So let's bring it back. What
Yeah.
is velvet? What does velvet even mean?
So it's called the elk velvet antler because it's the stage of growth of the antler that you're actually harvesting this.
Yeah, so if you've ever seen the antler, it looks hairy, it looks kind of weird. I'm gonna pass this around.
And we're not harvesting this, by the way. We've got this, we actually have a super cool lady that, she's like an old school, her job is to breed elk, like stud. She's like an elk stud muffin. I don't know what they call that these days, but she, yeah, so
Yeah, exactly.
she's won all these prizes for genetics, but
Yeah, it's during this phase of growth, it grows 1 to 2 inches a day. So like one day, the next day, the next day, there's something going on in here that when humans take it internally, there's magic happening, there's gold happening.
it's a miracle in nature that an animal can lose all this bone and grow it back every year. It's exactly at the stage of it's growing. That is when they clip the tips. Apparently, it's like it doesn't hurt the elk, and you drive them with dandelions actually. At the time that, and you have to get into like a shark cage. Because you drive them. Yeah.
Trimming a nail, I guess?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, so
100%.
one question that I always get about the elk antler is, how come I don't know about it? My
How
vet,
come we don't know
my
about it?
vet will prescribe it to my dog, but how come people aren't promoting it for humans?
And it's funny in Alberta, like we
It's not a pharmaceutical. It's sort of in the gray area. I'm going to touch about that. I've never talked about that in one of our presentations. excited to talk about that. But yeah, for dogs, they give it for the physical body to repair muscles, joints, tendons, ligaments, cartilage. It literally has something called IGF-1, which is a growth factor. It literally can repair something 3 times faster versus not.
It's not just bones that it can repair faster. Like a broken bone is said to repair 3 times faster if you take the Elk Antler. But it's tendons, ligaments, connective tissue, joints, and interestingly, the brain. So it's one of the only substances on the planet, very similar to the lion's mane mushroom, that can regenerate the nervous system.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass this around. We are gonna give away some samples. You don't have to take any, but if you feel the calling to have 1 or 2,
I like to just chew on them.
you're more than welcome to.
Oh,
Is it the actual like full part, the full bone that you clip off, or is it like? a
yes. Did you see
coating,
the one we passed around with
or-
the?
Yeah. But
So-
what exactly is the substance you're harvesting off? Is it the actual full bone, or
It's
is
the
it just
full-
the hairy
It's
cover?
the full bone with all that marrow inside of it, too.
But it's the new growth of the bone, so it's kind of softer. That's how it-
Exactly.
Yeah,
Before
exactly.
it
It's
dries
very
out.
soft. It's the tip. I believe it's.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's loaded with nutrients, collagen, elastin. It is essentially a multivitamin and mineral. You could take Elk Antler just for that, but the growth factors is what's, separates it from anything else I've ever seen.
So what about preventative, if you're not injured?
That's a very
Yeah.
good question. What about preventative? As we age, we start to lose, collagen, elastin ability. So supplementing this is fantastic. Even athletes in their 20s are benefiting,
And one of its famous, it's actually very famous, interesting for insomnia, of all things. And that's where it really started helping me, because I had a concussion. Got a concussion, and the worst part of it was not being able to sleep. It's like insomnia.
Does it have any hormonal impacts?
Well, absolutely. Absolutely, though it's not necessarily like
Like, would it affect women differently than men, or like should women be cautious with it at
Yeah,
all?
so it does raise testosterone levels. Okay, so which is actually a good thing. We have a lot of female clientele saying, but that's terrible. I don't want my testosterone being raised. We're like, well, maybe you do. And we're not doctors, so anything we say today, double check it. Use your
Oh, yeah.
insight. Yeah,
it's
that is-
definitely has a long tradition of use for women as well.
So how many?
I would look in this book, but my hands are all
Yeah, so Don asked a good question. How many do you take a day?
And what time?
Before I answer that question, it's important in herbalism, we call it cycling on and off. This is one of the key things. You must cycle on and off Elk Antler. We recommend maybe 3 weeks on, 1 week off, or 1 day on, 1 day off, 1 week, etc. It doesn't really matter, but the point is to give your body a break. So it doesn't rely on something external to help.
Often you will only really realize how a herb has been helping you when you stop taking it. Because a lot of these herbs are very subtle. But it's when you stop taking it, you're like, oh, that's why I was feeling so good.
Yeah, and to answer your question, Donna, we recommend 1 to 3 a day. I always like to overdo it when I start off with something just to feel the effects. So I took 7 caps one day and I went for a run. I'm not a runner. I literally had the urge to go for a run. I think I ran 10K. The next day I felt terrible. Well, I guess you could say take more elk, but no. Yeah, it gives you physical energy. It gives you mental energy. It's good for fertility. It's good for libido. It's good for athletes recovering. It's good for athletes performing. I'm going to get into this about the WADA. Has anyone heard about WADA? The World
It's good for
Anti-Doping Agency. So they were trying to ban this in 2013 and they didn't succeed because it's a food.
Yeah, it's not steroidal. It's again, it's feeding the body, nourishing the body, the elements it needs to build hormones with. So,
And anyone that says there's no science behind what we're talking about, there's
Oh,
a
yeah.
ton. So
about 50 different studies on elk.
this is literally just one study. I think it's from 2001, and the proven benefits of the elk velvet.
This was a review of the scientific literature. So, you know, I mean, we can go in on, should we just read it out?
Yeah.
Okay, anti-aging properties, antifungal activity. It's interesting, the anti-aging properties, a lot of that research is the beauty industry. So cool. Yeah, antifungal, anti-inflammatory, anti-narcotic addiction, anti-ulcer, cardiovascular effects.
I just have to go back to the anti-narcotic addiction. We're seeing a lot of clients coming off nicotine, painkillers, alcohol, and all they've done was started taking elk velvet antler, and they just feel there's some chemical reaction in the brain. They feel, I don't know if it's like a dopamine, they feel satisfied without the need of taking their dependent thing they're taking. So that's very interesting.
And it helps with pain too. It's also pain reliever as well.
Any idea about if it helps people that are in SSRIs?
Oh, like that's an antidepressant, eh?
Well, because most times it's prescribed, but what it's not dealt with is with the person themselves, and they get like, you're just not addicted as long as you take it, right? So would it help to, if people want to taper off that?
It's a good
and
question.
deal
Yeah,
with actually the root cause of it?
that's a good question. I'm sure it.
Based on
is-
what we know, I'd say yes, but obviously we can't say
I'm
it
sure
would.
it
But
must have some benefits for anxiety and depression. That's how it's so good for insomnia, because you'll notice your mind become quiet. It's interesting. You think, I love feeding this to my dog too. You'd think this would get him all reared up, because it's like, you know, think to get him all reared up, but no, he's so calm when he starts taking this stuff.
anti-ulcer activity, cardiovascular effects. Maybe that's why I wanted to go for a run. No
Yeah.
idea.
Protective effects, I don't know what that means.
Number 8, that's the most exciting.
Growth factors in
That's-
velvet.
To me, that's the most exciting. It's like
Yeah.
you break your bone, you could take something that has no side effects and heal 3 times faster.
Yeah.
That's pretty substantial.
Immune system, but yes. And number 10, if you take Elk Antler, yeah, you are guaranteed to grow horny, as they say.
Well, I don't know about you, but it could increase bone density too.
Oh yeah.
Toxic effects, weight gain.
So it stops. It can help. Yeah. Both.
Number 12 is interesting. We had this young man in his 30s report back to us, said he lost 10 pounds just taking elk antler. I'm like, oh, you must have been working out. Like, it gave you the drive to work out. He's like, no, all I did was take elk antler and I lost 10 pounds. We're like,
And it can
very
have
interesting.
the equal benefit to gain weight if you don't have. It's very interesting.
Diabetes.
Physical stress, blood and iron. It can help with anemia. I'm not supposed to say that out loud.
Anti-rheuma,
Yeah.
we'll say.
Yeah, you can't say that.
Yeah. Oh well, we're doing it. Analgesic, pain reliever.
Sedative enhancing effect.
Yeah, bones and cartilage, liver, and then very fascinating, the spinal nerves and whiplash. So really cool for that kind of stuff too. And endocrine functions.
And so you said it also helps with like brain healing, so this would be really good for like vaccine injury, because like I've been in chronic pain since I got a vaccine 2 years ago or whatever, like chronic headaches at about like a 3 to 7 out of 10 at all times, 24 hours a day. So this might
Memory.
be like,
And-
I should take it. What would you recommend a dosage, and I can report back to you? Like,
Just to start, even 3 a day.
okay.
If you do injure yourself, like
Yeah,
if you do have a broken bone, you do want to take more
Okay.
than at the time, but
I'm suffering with flash accident.
oh yeah. No, it's
I'll report back.
it's kind of fun. Okay, we're doing great, eh?
Yeah, so
We
like
only
I
got 10
said,
minutes to
it's
talk about
has
mushrooms.
40 of the required 181 nutrients. We can send all this to you too if you want. This I want to touch on it because it's fascinating. So in 2012, has anyone heard of Ray Lewis? Big football player, and he was taking Elk Antler, and yeah, he basically got in a lot of trouble for taking this natural supplement. And then in 2013, the WADA, which is the World Anti-Doping Association or agency, I believe, they banned it. They banned it. Like athletes can't take something natural. But then after further consideration, the WADA, they removed it. They realized it was nonsense. They can't do that to people. So yeah, it's no longer banned, but it is sort of in this gray, weird area, which probably means it works, right? I don't know about you, but anything in the gray area is probably
Yeah.
pretty
They don't
powerful.
want to see what you're
And it's all because of the IGF-1.
Okay, so is everyone ready? I mean, it's so interesting. Everyone is enjoying themselves. I can see. Right?
You guys are exciting.
And,
The Golden King.
so we only have 10 minutes to go through the medicinal mushrooms. But when I watch a video on YouTube, it's interesting to see people's attention spans these days. 10 minutes is a lot of time, right?
Yeah.
So 10 minutes to go through chaga mushroom.
This
which
is my favorite mushroom. So it's actually not a mushroom. We're not going to get into that.
It's grows on birch trees. That's another one of the most valuable herbs on planet Earth right now. Just because it will only be found in the wild. You cannot cultivate chaga and produce
Yes.
a fruiting body. It has to be grown on a living birch tree.
So when I say it's not a mushroom, it's called a sclerotia or a sclerotium, and it's a hardened mass of mycelium.
The actual mushroom lives under the forest
And-
floor.
It's very scientific. People often say, like, Alex, why don't you talk about that? I don't think it matters, but just so you know,
Basically, it's a
mycelium.
symbiotic relationship with the birch tree. So if the birch tree gets wounded in any way, chaga will grow out of the wound, and that's what the Cree called it, the scab of their trickster Nanabozo.
Yeah, so it grows on birch trees. It's also known as the mushroom of 1,000 birch trees because it's pretty difficult to find. It's always a treasure when we do find this, and for very good reason. It's the #1 source of antioxidants in the world. The #1 source of antioxidants in the world. That's huge.
A lot of people are gonna say they've seen this on aspens, like big black pearls like that. That is definitely not chaga. You definitely want to find birch. Apparently, there is a report of a chaga on a birch in an old part of Calgary. I guess I shouldn't reveal it because it's very exciting. We have to go about 3 hours north to get into the birch forest, and you have to wait till it's frozen. Because in the summer, this landscape is literally impossible to traverse due to all the muskeg.
Oh, wow.
We have one little friend, Brandon. He's about this tall, right? But he literally fell directly into a sink, like plunged into the water. Like, you had no idea. It's actually pretty risky.
You might be listening now.
summer.
Hi, Brandon.
Yeah.
So yeah, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant,
Yeah.
antifungal. It literally, there's not much this mushroom can't do. But what I want to touch on is this black part. So it's the second highest source of melanin in the world.
The most powerful antioxidant on the planet Earth ever
And
discovered.
that's called melanin. It's what makes our skin color, our hair color, our eye color. And when we take this internally, it increases our electromagnetic frequency.
Another
Melanin
radio
equals
protective herb.
melanin equals electrical conductivity. So we're getting more energy without like the jittery crash you get from caffeine.
Yeah, we have been getting some good reports about the chaga. One lady actually like wrote us in tears of thanks because she was gonna stop drinking coffee because it was making her so anxious. She's like, I'm not thinking about coffee. I don't want to.
And I said, look, before you do that, add a teaspoon of our chaga syrup into your coffee. Just report back to us. And she reported back being like, my anxiety went away and I could enjoy a cup of coffee with my husband.
So the other really interesting
So
thing about
pass this
chaga.
along.
Oh yeah. The other fascinating thing about chaga is how alkalized. It's one of the most alkalizing things ever found, and that's another reason why it's so good for.
It's also one of the most studied mushrooms in the world.
Yeah.
There's a really good book written by David Wolf,
Yeah.
and he sort of summarizes all the science. It's fantastic. And there's not much, like, it's hard to talk about because we're not doctors. I mentioned that before, but it can help with certain chronic diseases that
It's
otherwise
another-
would have no solution.
It's another of the great adaptogens. So all medicinal mushrooms are considered adaptogens. So when you actually consume the chaga, there's a few things going on. It's incredibly rich in all sorts of minerals like zinc. It's also one of the richest sources of zinc. You know the importance of zinc. We need zinc to give birth to new cells. We don't have enough zinc in our diet. Our body will hang on to the old cells. So this is actually crucial, and it's actually crucial for men. You know, zinc for the, you know, yeah, exactly.
And I believe chaga is one of the most premier adaptogens, which is why it made our top 4 today. When I started taking chaga, I believe it was like 8 years ago. I had a pretty stressful job, and I just literally started taking it every morning, 1 cup of tea, and all of a sudden my stress went down, my ability to cope with my job. I was laughing. I would go on my lunch break just laughing, and all I started to do was take chaga. And I know this sounds like a fairy tale story, but until you start experimenting with these herbs, I highly recommend it.
This is
Get
a
back to
great,
us.
great resource, the Fungal Pharmacy by Robert Rogers. If you want to learn more about medicinal mushrooms, because it's not just chaga, that's the thing. When we go up, we are finding like, I don't know what happened to the Alberta reishi, but it's around here, but we find amadou on the birch. We find red belted polypore. It's not just the chaga up there that we have an incredible wealth of here in Canada. That's
And we do create a multi-mushroom syrup with our top 7 mushrooms.
yeah, we got the multi-mushroom syrup.
And this is one of them. This is called the amadou. And legend has it that they used to be able to transfer embers from tribe to tribe, the nomadic people, to quick start a fire. So they just walk around like this. I was also used to cauterize wounds.
Amadou, yeah.
Amadou.
If we needed to amputate someone's limb, you would have one of these to have smoldering and stop the bleeding.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. Yep, that's our Alberta reishi back there. Otherwise known as the artist cone, the Ganoderma applanatum.
One thing I noticed is you guys are using maple syrup in this.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a issue with honey.
Well, we were just thinking it was the tea. Well, it's tree medicine. But so that's what we do. We get the chaga, we plant it. We you have to. It's actually quite a lot of work to chunk it up, and then you gotta dry it really well, and then you gotta powder it. And then what we do is something called a dual extraction. So we tincture it, soak it in alcohol, and then mix that with a really strong decoction. So we make a really strong extraction with the chaga. Not only that, but we boil the mushrooms 3 times to get everything out of it. because that's a big issue with, so chaga is such a rare and precious mushroom that, and people don't really know what to do with it. I've had so many people here buy the chaga mushroom, and it's hard as wood, right? It's a piece of wood. And they make tea with, they're just pouring hot water over it and drinking like a cup of tea. So that's the reason we are preparing the medicine here. The other, it's also portable now. You can take this with you.
Yeah, and I will touch, we've been studying a patch of chaga mushrooms for, well, 8 years now.
Yeah.
And the ethics and sustainability of foraging is huge. We're gonna do a whole new class on that.
But we're actually, there's ways to harvest the chaga that you just take a chunk. You never want to.
The rule is about 30%, leave 30% intact with the tree, and it will grow back.
The chagas regrow.
It takes a long time, mind you. It takes
It's like an
6 to 10
inch a
years.
year.
There's a term for that, honorable harvest.
Yeah, something like that.
We've seen it all. We've seen people literally chainsaw down trees to go after this.
And we also see a lot of we see some pretty wild activity out there with, they do a lot of the seismic lines for fracking out there. But I've never seen anything like it, these crazy, it's like a tree-eating monster, kind of like it's like from that movie from a long time ago. It has 2 saws, it goes zzz, and then it like mulches it behind it itself. So that's good. But how much chaga is just getting chipped up?
Yeah, do you have a question?
Quick question about if I have some chaga at home that is like rock hard, and I've done exactly what you described. I've boiled it a bunch, but then I'm like not really sure if I'm boiling it enough. And my only method to access the chaga in that is to boil it. Like,
You'll notice
say
when
do it
there's,
for like hours, or like what do you recommend?
as soon as there's no more color in the chaga, in your tea,
And it takes a long time.
because what we'll do, we'll start with, let's say we start with 4 liters of water in the first batch. We actually reduce it almost to half. And then we take the chunks out, and then the next brew we'll do 2 liters of water. And then the third brew, 1 liter of water, kind of idea.
Okay.
And you'll notice there's no more color left.
And there is alcohol in it too, for 3 reasons. Number 1, to potentiate the medicine, to get deeper
Yeah.
into the body. Number 2,
Preservative.
shelf life. But the most important thing is it
Delivery.
yields the anti-cancer components.
Yeah.
Stuff that the water can't do, the alcohol will extract. So that's why we make a dual extracting medicine.
What did everyone think about the taste of that?
Did everyone get to try it?
And so we had vanilla to it too, because we wanted to make it medicine. We wanted to ensure people take their medicine.
So if you couldn't do alcohol, could you
Oh.
maybe do like a long, infuse like glycerin?
It seems to be resinous. So
Yeah.
the qualities in the chaga that are alcohol soluble are like saps.
Yeah.
So if you can extract frankincense and things with
Then you
other
should be
things.
able to do it.
Oil extraction. Yeah, there needs to be more research on oil extraction
Oil extract.
Yeah.
for mushrooms.
The chaga powder out here, it's interesting. It's all from Siberia. The dual extract powder though, they've evaporated the alcohol. Yeah.
You can always see the alcohol.
Can you use
Yes.
one of the magic butter making machines like they use for THC extractions to do that?
What's the butter making?
Hey, I'd give it a
It's
try. Yeah.
basically like a blender and a heater and,
Oh,
A decarboxylator.
yeah, like I was gonna ask coffee grinder.
Well, you want to get the greatest surface area possible.
Chaga's been known to ruin Vitamixes. I will say that.
and
I've ruined many of Vitamix. It's not worth it.
This is amazing. This is our time together, though. I hope we gave you a good idea of some of the really cool things we have in Alberta. We didn't even talk about pine pollen. We did not talk about stinging nettle roots, or leaves. We do not talk about sea buckthorn.
Yeah,
We
there's
did
so
not
much
talk
we didn't
about-
talk about today, and everything was sort of condensed. But we hope we left you with some picture of the value of the Canadian landscape.
We didn't even talk about
And-
the wild ginseng we have in Alberta that people don't know about.
It's one of the niches of our company, Denis. Everything that we make and talk about is from Canada, right? We're not sourcing, which there's
as close as
nothing.
possible.
That's a conversation for a different day, but yeah, we value our country and what it offers, and we hope we inspired you to get out there and forage.
Yeah,
And-
I guess we can take some questions, but yeah, thanks everyone for your time. Come and hang out.
Yes.
Rhodiola, but I didn't see that it
Oh.
came around this way.
Oh, the Rhodiola's missing. Let's pass it down. Well,
Well, thank you both for generously sharing your time and knowledge and letting us try.
Yeah.
and it's
Thanks,
fun. Do we have everyone's email? From everyone sign up with their email because we're going to send you more resources too. And you can feel free to ask us questions if you want to send us an email. We're on Instagram, sort of.
Oh yeah, I often get the question, Alex, can you take all 4 of those things in one day? Because they're all so powerful. You can. You honestly can. You're gonna have a really good day. But just be mindful about when you're taking each thing. I've combined rhodiola and elk before and stayed up all night. Too much energy. Yeah. Experiment with yourself.
Okay, a question over here.
The chaga, you said you did 4 different types of
Ex-
cultivations or whatever.
Extraction.
Extraction. So which one would you use for, say, vinyl?
Oh, it's really interesting. We actually, one of our first products, we tried to make the balm of chaga, and it worked wonders.
We extracted it. It took a lot of time. And then our first patient was my son who had eczema. And I'm not even kidding, within 2 applications, it was gone. And we're like, what on earth is happening here? There's not much science behind fat soluble chaga extraction. I think that's
Yeah.
going to be the future of chaga.
So how did you
So,
start it?
uh,
Did you do that?
It was a double boiler
Oh, okay.
system with olive oil, but even olive oil. We have to ask ourselves, can we get that forever? I know jojoba is native to jojoba oil is actually native to Arizona region. We might have to start talking. Well, the Blackfoot would use bison.
Life
grease.
fat, yeah, animal fat.
yeah.
We have a lady over here with a question. Yeah. Have you ever tried to distill chaga?
I have
No, that's a great question. There's Malcolm's alembic is right there. I wonder if it would yield a essential oil because they say that chaga actually contains vanillins too. That's curious.
Pretty well, thanks guys. And second, you guys especially forage up north. I'm wondering where you can forage Valley.
Oh,
Navigate.
jeez.
Oh, we can't tell you anything.
No, of course not.
I'm just kidding.
But more like how you balance navigate crown land.
There's an amazing resource. There is an amazing resource for crownland camping. It's just it's from the Alberta government,
Okay, yeah.
and you can see all the crown land.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, that's.
And that's kind of what you guys are.
If you send us a message, we'll send that out to you. But
You gotta know the research.
yeah, and then as soon as you get I don't know if you've gone up the 4th Street Trunk Road, the 40. Basically, it's all Calgary's really lucky because we have crown land really close. But basically, as far as you go up, all the way it meets the Jasper Highway up there, and there's all that. Some little nooks and crannies, I'm part of the Alberta Mycological Society, and the provincial government actually every year allows them to do some foraging in provincial parks, and the whole idea is to document all the species. So it's really cool opportunity to join that.
I'd recommend wearing like hunting colors. There's a lot of hunters out there. Red. Also, we forgot to thank the online viewers. I don't know if there's any questions to me, but thank you so much. You guys are awesome.
Everyone's just saying thanks.
One more question. Are you guys planning to do courses in the field, maybe
Oh,
multi-day
yeah.
courses?
Well, we've been doing plant walks.
Yeah.
So we have been doing plant identification walks. This year was so hard. We took on this like grade 7s groups.
Yeah, one of the best things that we do
It was
is
wild.
we take students, we run school trips, field trips, and we get the students out in nature and we relate it to their science curriculum.
So
We can
had
relate it to the
about-
First Nations curriculum. And so Denis and I took on this project.
I
It
think
was
we
like-
had like 8 different groups of 30 grade 7.
And it was like 2 straight weeks every day. We're out. But the children loved it.
yeah.
The look on their face, getting off their phone, getting their hands dirty, learning some valuable knowledge.
But if you join up,
And they thought Denis was like a celebrity or like a pirate. They kept this whole selfie thing. They all wanted a selfie with him. It made me a little sad,
yeah, stay tuned because we do those plant walks.
Take us north. You want to
Yeah. That's
yeah, stay
We've
tuned.
been talking about that ever since before we even started doing like retreats and stuff up there. We got some good friends with cool properties. That's another great way to forage is if you find private properties that people like have friends that have.
Or Camp Mockingbird.
Yeah, keep in touch. We do want to thank you because we wouldn't be where we're at without you. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. You guys are keeping us going and we're not going to stop.
Yeah,
until everyone's outside.
We better let you all enjoy the beautiful day out there.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, my friend designed that. She's like,